everyone, and welcome back to the Laura Show. I am here with the beautiful and talented Kathleen Black. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I was thinking about how I was really going to introduce you. You were a real estate agent. You're a real estate team coach and trainer, an author of 2 best-selling books, a keynote speaker, a business owner, a mom. I mean, the list goes on and on. I have a hard time with my life when I just have like one thing beside my name, and you seem to have a never-ending list. So first and foremost, congratulations on all the success.
Thank you.
I want to know, like, where are we now? Like, I want to start with today, and then we're going to go backwards, because I feel like that's a great place to start, just to give people an idea of what it is that you exactly do. If you can explain it, like, what is it that I do?
No, I mean, what I do is I help people shift, like essentially at the essence, and that sounds really simplistic, but it's actually not. I mean, I deal in holistic high performance. So everything I do is to help people shift from where they're at to a place that they want to go. And I have a big reverence for where people want to go. I think it's really important. I don't think it's, people are too ambitious. I mean, if you're too in your ego, maybe. But most people, they have a calling because they're meant to learn something, or they're not feeling aligned in their lives. So my most important work is literally that. I mean, I've shifted so many times in my life. It's probably why you have all these different things. And I know the power of it. So I want to help other people do that. So whether they're a solopreneur, whether they're a stay-at-home mom, they're a big, iconic brand or high net worth individual, our goal is always the same. We're helping them to shift into a more positive, evolved place.
I'm going to come right off the bat and just kind of ask this question for clarity, because I feel like the audience might want to know.
Yeah.
When it sounds kind of similar to like life coach. Would you describe yourself as that, or are these different types of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think life coaching is great, and I think it's so positive, because it used to be, we have a therapist, and there's some negative connotation to therapists. Now you can have a relationship coach, you can have an addiction coach, you can have a life therapist for almost anything, and it's very accepted, and I think that's fantastic. I do have 15 different certifications, like from a university degree to energy healing and DISC personality profiling, all the way to, work in the business side of things. So I would not classify myself as a life coach. I mean, I would say I'm a strategist, a high performance strategist. So we do help businesses have strategy. Again, I'm here. I want to get somewhere where we're productive, we're profitable, we're efficient, we're aligned in our mission, vision, and values. And we 100% do that. But I mean, I'm also somebody who loves to be on a stage with thousands of people and feel their energy and have an experience. Like, I don't do keynote talks anymore. I create an experience for the people who are there. And that's just, it's such a special thing to feel. So it's a little bit different than life coaching.
Well, I've actually seen you on stage doing your thing, and you can certainly tell that you're in your element. And we'll definitely touch on, stage presence and that a little bit later. But I guess I want to get a little bit of a sense. Was this always your calling? Did you kind of always feel like I needed to go down this path, or was this kind of like something you fell into?
I'd say probably looking back, both. Like, I left home very young. I think a lot of people do. I mean, I ended up in the real estate industry, but that wasn't a direct path. So
how did you end up in that industry?
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people do, like myself, and kind of just find ourselves there.
I mean, to be honest, I left home at 15. I found my way to university. My dad passed first year of university, so that was quite shocking. And I took a year off, went back, had my son. And there's a reason I'm saying this, because having my son in university, it wasn't the plan, but I was like, it's okay, we'll figure this out. And I was in that time in life where I was like, I can do anything, like I can have him on a set schedule. I can bring in students for room and board and exchange students. And that was my first taste at leverage. I was like, I can have a townhouse and have 3 people renting like different rooms and be in a better area for my son. And I didn't see the connection. And I managed dental offices, which was very systematic, and scripts and all that kind of stuff. So eventually, when I was married, we were buying investment properties, and it was a lot of sweat equity, just like sanding drywall and doing everything and anything. And my husband really wanted me to get into real estate, and I did not want to do it. I was like, I have 2 little kids. I'm managing investment properties. I'm doing the contracting work like this. I'm dealing with the tenants. Like, this is nuts. And I really didn't want to do it. But finally, I did get my real estate license, thinking it would be to add to our portfolio.
Okay.
But the real estate industry caused some tension on my marriage. And I quickly figured out, going from being not the breadwinner to being out of the house in a competitive industry and trying to build my business, was just too hard on our marriage. So we ended up to separate.
And sorry, if you don't mind, can I go a little deeper?
Yeah.
Hard on like a time or the fact that the role shifted, like the breadwinner?
Both. It was hard because we kind of our friends called us the no money miracle, because at that time you could have 100% mortgages. Like you could refinance, pull money. We were doing the leapfrog effect. And anyone who knows investments, when you're getting up and running, like renovating them enough that you could live in one unit, refinancing, getting it done, moving to your next one. So it was already stressful. Like we were buying multiple properties and doing all the work within a couple of years. So adding real estate and me now not being at home and not being on the schedule of the family or my husband caused a lot of friction. So I found myself a solo mom again and 2 kids under 5. And I really had to make a choice, like go back and manage dental offices. I'll have set hours. I'd make okay income. It would be better for the kids, but no future growth, right? Or I was newly licensed in real estate. I wasn't selling actively. Right. I was just in training. Yeah, we were doing it for myself. I was just doing training. I'm like, or going to real estate, it's cutthroat supposedly and going to want my time 24/7. But that's what I obviously did.
How did you make that decision, if you don't mind me asking? Because I feel like that's a tough decision to make. Oftentimes in life, we come to this fork in the road, right? And when you talk to other people, they might look at your situation and think, oh, well, that's a no-brainer. You got to go down this path. But I mean, at that time, like obviously your kids and their well-being means a lot to you. You already know the stress that maybe real estate had put on your family, but you still went down that path anyways. Like, how did you come to grips with that?
I think there were a couple of reasons. One, I'm a big believer. Now I can articulate it. Then I didn't really know it. But when you make decisions out of fear, you cost yourself your future. And even then, I was like, am I willing to sell out my entire future, regardless of now being divorced and having 2 young kids and life saying you screwed up? Are you willing to sell out your future to get a bit of safety and security now? It's like, no, I'm not. And on top of that, going through the family court system, it really made me angry in a good way. Like I was like, I'm not willing not to have resources. I'm not willing not to have a say. I'm not willing not to be able to direct my life and my family safely. And therefore, I'm going to chart my own course. So I didn't go into real estate being like, I want to be top 1% or I want to do any of these things. But that first year, I sold 44 homes. So I with 2 kids under 5.
Because like for the viewers and listeners, like that's a lot of homes to sell, particularly in your first year of real estate. There's people who've been selling real estate forever and they don't do that type of business.
Well, I think it's one of our core values now, but it's model the best, forget the rest. And I'm a big believer in that. So if somebody wasn't operating at a high level, it can sound elitist, but for me, it was survival. Like I had no choice. So people are like, oh, well, just get tips from people in the office. I'm like, are you crazy? Like I've got 2 little kids. Like I have to do this. So for me, it was only modeling what was working at a top 1% national level. So I worked with a team initially, went through my training, and then eventually that's what led me into coaching as well.
So you don't sell real estate anymore?
I'm licensed, but no, like I'll work with people I've trained. It's just, you can't, no.
So the coaching started taking off because you were successful and other people started coming to you, is my guess, because you were so successful. Am I wrong? And then they said, like, give me the tips. And then is that how this all started?
Well, somewhat. It's like, I'm kind of like a cat, but I have more than 9 lives. But it was so I used to run the first team-specific coaching company for real estate in Canada. So 3 gentlemen put that company together. Very quickly, they weren't seeing eye to eye. Later, I found out they accumulated a lot of debt very, very quickly. How, I don't know. I don't get into that. But I essentially got an opportunity to become director of coaching when the company was only 18 months live. So like my first coaching clients were people like Rob Golfi. Like our team is coaching Mark Ferris. I'm coaching the Charltons. We're coaching Amy Flowers. Like these are our first clients. So these are people who are, some of them now top in the country, top 10 still. So I never coached individuals. I was always coaching big teams, trying to expand and move time forward. And I became a half owner in that company. And eventually I sold my shares and started this company in 2015.
So you started coaching, and I'm curious about this because I feel like this happens with a lot of people, particularly women, perhaps. You stumbled into real estate. You put your back against the wall because it was against the wall. You didn't put it against the wall. You had no choice, and you did that. But then the coaching thing sounds like more of like a, maybe a conscious decision. Did you feel at any time at a place like you didn't belong there, or you weren't experienced enough or in the industry long enough to be giving that type of advice? I feel like oftentimes I'll talk to people and say, well, you should be sharing this information. You should go on a podcast and share that. And they'll say, well, I've only been in real estate for a year. I don't feel like I've earned it or whatever. Did you go through any of those kind of like mind situations?
Well, and it's so okay. And it's so interesting you asked this because this is really important right now, right? Because we also have come out of COVID and we instantly had everyone's a coach and everyone's online with a beautiful website and saying that they've done all this stuff. And some of them certainly have not. So we went into a place of what's legitimate. So what I'm hearing people talk a lot about imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And I always go to the flip side of, wait a minute, imposter syndrome also is a really healthy place because it makes us ask, am I legitimate? Do I have the resources? Am I able to help people? And it also calls us to continue to learn and do better, which I think is really important. Legitimacy is so key right now in the world. People crave it, right? So initially, was I a little bit nervous? Sure, but I looked at it as saying, I can help make like I could see multiple areas in their business right away that I knew just from conversion levels I was getting, let alone other teams I was coaching, that I can help you shift here, I can help you shift here. Like, look at the difference in results. If we increase this by 20%, like your face-to-face buyer consultations to sign, you're going to have X percentage more deals, right? Like, that's exciting stuff if you love strategy and you're powering up people in their confidence. So, I mean, did I feel a little nervous at first? Yeah, but it also wore away pretty quick when I was like, there's so many things I can help people with here. Not a couple, so many.
So what is it, like you were working with realtors, I guess, exclusively at the start. What was it at this, like when you think back and you're like, there's this one glaring thing that realtors just seem to keep getting wrong every time. And it's like every single conversation you open up, you're like, that's the thing again and again and again that like you're exhausted of talking to people about. So let's just set the record straight for them not to do it now. What's that thing?
Oh, man. I think, you know what, like back then I was also a business coach. I'm not now. Like now I've got 10 more certifications. So I used to deal with what people do, like the doing of the business. And then really quickly I realized, wait a minute, we need to be helping people with who they're being and how they think, because what I believe dictates what I do. Right? So a big part of the problem that I see in real estate is the same reason somebody's transactional is the same reason they're product driven. It's because they're dealing reactively with not just their business ever, their life, right? They're going day to day and they're facing the day and they're trying to get through it, but they're not looking high level at where am I going? Am I using the right tools? Do I have the right vehicles to take me there? Like in the team space, I mean, it's shocking when you look at people's books. Like you look at the books, you're like, my gosh, like the percentage of teams that are not like profitable, they're not a strong business platform.
It wouldn't know all the fancy cars and all the beautiful clothes that they all wear, right?
But it's scary. There's a lot of team leaders paying people to be in the business. Now tell me, that's not from a business system. That's from something internal. What's happening that you're creating your business that way? You're mirroring what you believe inside as you're building your business. And that's why expanding our businesses is so good for us, because it makes us see things so that we can, feel and progress them.
Yeah. What do you think it generally is the thing that is that's making them go down that path? Like, is it a specific mindset that people have that they need to work on, or?
Yeah, like right now I'm touring Shift, right, as the keynote experience. So that's all about, identifying this journey to go from chaos into calm. And one of the things we talk about is, when I say ego, I want people to understand, I don't mean like egotistical, like sometimes, but I don't really mean that. I mean like we're in our ego, we're in fear, we're in our small mind, we're in the place where our brain is closed when we want it to be open and expansive. And when people are in that place and they're in the ego place, they're very focused on them and they don't even know it. And a great leader is always trying to help other people be successful. And that sounds obvious, but
yes, it does sound obvious.
Behave, it's not obvious. People are either overbearing, like I throw you on my back and I drag you to the finish line and you have to win because I'm a winner.
Yeah.
And if you didn't win, I wouldn't be a winner.
Yeah.
They're still taking all the credit. And it's a fear. It's like, well, what is my value here? Right? Even with buyers and sellers sometimes, when people are so pushy, it's because they're scared. If they weren't that way, would people work with them? Would they be able to influence them in a positive way? So they feel like they have to have this dominant energy. Or they're the opposite. They're the absentee leader, where they're not available. They don't have any resources. Like, I figured it out. You should figure it out because I'm winning. We win. Nobody else, like you guys don't really matter. You're just kind of around.
Whoa. That's unpacking a lot there. I assume it requires people to really just sit and reflect, like do some self-awareness, right? Because if you're coming from a fearful place, a lot of people, they don't want to admit it. They don't see it. And if you try to like point it out to some people, they don't take that. Yeah, that gets their back up. So what is it about your space? Is it because people are paying you for your advice that they're more open to learning? Or is it a certain tactic that you need to take to kind of like shine a mirror on some people's behavior?
I think it's both. I mean, like, yeah, Carl Jung, humanist psychology, big believer that, you don't need me, right? You just need me to mirror back to you what you're doing and you can solve your problems. You're intelligent and like you want to evolve naturally as a human. And we do, and we block ourselves. But the people who move out of ego the quickest are always the most successful, always. And 98% of the population don't leave it, right? They're going to stay in that fear mindset. So I think it's a mixture. Number one, you help people getting out of it because they know where they want to go. And most people, unfortunately, they're too scared to say where they really want to go. So I nurture their vision a lot because they have one, right? And sometimes we don't give ourselves permission, right? Like that first year in real estate, I didn't give myself permission to have big goals. I'm like, I need to be able to pay my bills, make sure my kids are safe, have enough babysitters. Like I was just getting by, right? So sometimes people have stayed in that, I just need to get by too long and they don't realize they're out of it and they need just to like go back to dreaming and then put it to real life. I think the other thing is the people we work with, they want it for real. They don't want the show, right? Like we work with people who might be quieter in rooms, but are profiting double or triple the people on stage. I'm okay with that. Those are the people we work with. There's a more humble side. And when I say profit, like their people are productive. I don't mean as business owners, like taking it all to the bank.
Yes.
I mean like the business is healthy for the people around them and for them.
Interesting. Okay. There's so much to unpack. Like my mind's going all over the place because I'm very fascinated by these types of topics like growth mindset and things like that. And I've been working with other business owners, a lot of real estate agents as well, trying to help people produce content and give them some solutions for their company. And so I feel like I'm kind of just dabbling in this world that you've obviously been in for much longer than myself. And I've learned a lot about other people and about myself. What I do find though is that people tend to come to me at an interesting time in their life.
Yeah.
Is there like a quintessential client? Like, do they generally come to you at a specific time in their life or a time in their career and you're like, I always get the hard ones, But
yeah.
Or is it like people are just coming and they're, they already have it kind of figured out and they're just trying to move the needle that 1%?
So, okay. And I love this question because I personally get told off about this in marketing all the time. You'll understand why in a second. So when we're in that ego mindset, 98% of the population will only hire somebody to solve a problem, to reduce some type of pain or pain point. As a realtor, as a coach, they'll go to a brokerage because you're going to solve something I'm scared of. You're going to reduce it. Only 2% of the population are actually visionaries and they will invest to make their current life better when it's not painful. And you can shift, but the majority of people won't, but they can. They think, oh, you're born that way. It's not true. Right? People can shift their, once you see it, you can choose, right? The problem is often we don't see it. We don't realize we're operating a certain way. So I get in trouble for it a lot because I'm so about building, like prophecy, build something into creation. Like I live for it. So they're like, people don't relate to what you're saying. So they're always like, you have to market the pain points. So yes, the majority of people will come to coaching or leadership or make a move because they're in a problem and they see a beacon of light and they're like, you can help me, and they're going to move towards that light.
It's like marriage counseling, right? Like,
yeah,
people tend to go to get help when they need it, not when things are perfect and we're newlyweds and it's fantastic. Although that's when we probably should go. Probably have a lot less divorce in this country if that were the case. Okay, so client comes in. Let's say I'm your client. I come in and I'm like, I'm trying to take my business to the next level. I feel stuck. I feel overwhelmed and stressed a lot of the time. And I wake up, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I feel like I'm busy, but I'm not really achieving anything, or what I am achieving feels very small.
Yeah.
Where would you start with someone like me?
First, I'd want to start with tracking, but somebody like you, probably your persona you just described, probably would not want to. So I'd go back into some vision work, some value work, and get them into goal setting so that I could reverse engineer it. So when I say that, it's like, here's who I am, here's what I want, and I'll take them all the way to break down their entire year. So every conversion. So I start them with the vision. So it's right brain, not left brain. Because some people are motivated by money and business and a lot of people aren't. They're like, I'm doing this because I want to be with my family, or I want to travel, or I have this art project, right? So we want to motivate people based on what's important to them. So once we have that figured out and their values.
Isn't that already hard to get to? I feel like with people, because you'll ask them what they value and what's important, and some people would say, well, it is my family. but then their behavior doesn't match that. Or they'll say, it is that I want to be successful, but then their work ethic doesn't match the ambition.
And that's almost always. So like you talked about, as a leader, we learn who we are and we learn who we're not. And that's being brave. Like people will go, we have a whole process we take them through. So it's like a proprietary process we have, but people will go through and say, yeah, I value family and I value, quality time with people, whatever. And I'll go, okay, you work 85 hours a week. So where you put your time, your energy, your focus, your money, your attention, essentially, that's what you value. So either you're out of alignment or you're not being honest with yourself. So let's dig a little bit deeper, because we beat ourselves up, right? Like some people work their whole life for notoriety because they want to be seen. Like maybe they were never seen truly or believed in. That's not a bad thing. There's no judgment. There are people who needed notoriety who did amazing things for our world with it. That's okay. Just give yourself grace. I want notoriety. I had a hard time growing up. I need to be seen. So I'm going to use that to motivate me to do this, this, and this. And I'm going to give back to my community and these charities. And that's beautiful.
And it's kind of interesting because when you do come to that realization about yourself, all of a sudden, I feel like you can see the weight come off of people's shoulders because they're just saying, I get it. It's not the perfect answer, and it's not the perfect answer to everybody. Like maybe my mom would hate that I said notoriety. Maybe my dad would hate that I said family or whatever it may be, or people in my life, they would judge me for it. But when you truly say, but this is what's important to me, and then now I just need to like start achieving that.
Yeah.
It's like you don't need to worry about all the other stuff because we're always, being pulled in so many directions. I feel like I want to be a good person. I want to be good to the community, but I want to be successful. I want to be noticed. We want all these things, but what's really at the core? And when you get there, it's just like, oh, now I can just focus on it, right?
And do we really want them? How many of them, like the dad judging is using his values. The mom judging is using her values. Like really, like when you carve it down, there's a lot of things we think we want that we don't actually want. Like it is about judgment and it is about comparison, and it's very freeing, like you said, like, you know what? I don't actually care about that much, and that's okay.
And the tool that people use to do that is it like, I want your homework for tonight. I want you to go home and like spend some quiet time with yourself, and that all.
It's a process. So we have several like kind of worksheets, but then we do it on coaching calls to help them dive deeper. So a lot of our coaches are master neurolinguistic therapists. They're energy workers. Like I'm technically a hypnotherapist, which terrifies my children. But all sorts of different things, because we need these tools, right? Because some people will only speak business with us. So we need to do the same work within business. I can shift how you think within business. Other people are like, no, I want to address this clearly. Like I'm not fulfilled. I'm burnt out. Something's wrong. And we have people who are trained to work with that type of holistic like mindset side of things.
Changing the careers and going from real estate to coaching for business to, holistic, more, I guess, your holistic approach to helping people maybe would be the right way to frame it. You've obviously had to go back, as you mentioned, and go back to school again and again and again. Is there ever a point in your life where you're like, I've spent so much time up till now, say being a real estate agent, for me to like start over would be too much of an undertaking. But you've managed to push through, and you still are, because you continue to go back and continue to educate yourself. There's a lot of people that, fallacy of sunken costs, right?
Yeah.
That they would say, I'm pushing 40, my life is over, what's the point? What would you say to people like that through your experience?
Well, I mean, it's the age-old thing, right? There's nothing more empowering than rock bottom. Like people who have nothing to lose will actually see what they're capable of because they have no other choice. And I mean, honestly, I've probably been close to that a couple of times, and it served me really, really well. But I think for me, it's a constant evolution. I feel like personally, I would feel dead if I wasn't growing and learning and helping and expanding more. But I've definitely had moments where, particularly being a woman in this space, I mean, I've had sometimes people see pictures and be like, you're in a room with highly, highly, highly successful men, and they're all men. And I didn't even notice it. I was like, well, I didn't even think about it because I speak the masculine language of business and I can do it very, very well. And
that come naturally to you?
I'm a strategist. I'm what you call an INTJ in Myers-Briggs, which is like the mastermind. So it's like 0.08% of the female population. So in some ways, yes, I can go into my left brain very, very easily. But I've spent all my life doing healing and work to balance because I want both, right? I want the right brain, and I know it's sometimes when people are very, very left brain, it's from fear or trauma. That's not healthy. So you want to kind of clear it up. But there were times where I kind of got to the point where I was like, I always thought I had to be better. It's like, you need to learn. The reason they're not putting you on your stage is you need to know something different, or you need to be better, or your results need to be better, or your people need to speak up more. And for years, I was like, I'll build my own stages because I'm not going to be prey to other people, needing them to choose me. Like, I'm going to choose myself. But I got to a point where I had a huge aha where I was like, our results are, and I'm not being egotistical, like, we have people come to us, like, our results are just as good or better. Like, our systems are the foundation for massive teams, and they're still running those systems to be very productive. Not all of them, don't get me wrong. We didn't work with Rat, but many. And I got to the point where it's like, this isn't about being better. And it's that fallacy what women have, right? You get an opportunity, a man, you ask him once, a woman, you have to ask her 7 times, because in her head, she's like, do I have all the qualifications? Am I prepared? Can I do it now? Whereas the man's like, am I capable of doing it sometime? Right? And I was doing the same thing inadvertently, not even knowing, saying, well, do I have all the qualifications? And I'm like, damn it, we have more than all the qualifications. Like, now we just need impact. So now I'm at the point where, like, we're not shying away. So I kind of did go through that and be like, now we need to be on stages to help more people.
So I think that's so important to note, because, you're sitting here today and you said, I'm not trying to be egotistical, and they're very humble brags. You could brag a lot more, but you're not saying it from a place of, I know and I've never messed up, or I know and everyone should just be doing it like me because my life has been smooth sailing from time, right? You literally are taking people along the journey with you, and you're explaining the things that you've had to go through, which I find very empowering, because oftentimes I find some people, they keep their cards close to their chest, and they want to appear like they're successful or that they have no problems. And then here is somebody who's helping other people, but also being vulnerable at the same time. Is that intentional, or is that who you naturally are?
It's both. I mean, my sister many times is like, Brene Brown, safe vulnerability. Let's talk about it. But I think you have to know who you are. I want to be somebody who I want to walk with people. I want them to read my book, like the Relentless to Rise, and feel literally like they're walking with me. I wrote it during, like, part of it is walking across Spain, the Camino de Santiago, the pilgrimage. So it's got like journal entries as they go, and it's about personal expansion. I don't want them to feel like I'm walking higher or pushing them. I want them to feel like I'm walking with them. So to my family, I'm like, I get it, but I'm not here to get other people to write books or speak on stage, if they want to, of course, but I'm here for them to feel like somebody's with them, to be like, hey, like, I went through all of that, and you can shift to another place. You can, and it's very powerful to do that. So I made a commitment to myself, like, with that book. It was very vulnerable because this is my life story. It inspired the documentary. It's touring crazy, like all over Europe, all over the US. By Douglas Silversea's Emmy-winning director. He did the documentary based on the book. But I made a commitment, if you're not going to be honest, if you're not going to put the hard stuff in there that you're resisting writing, then you're not writing this book. And it was excruciating writing the book.
You had to go back, yes, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, there's a lake at the end of the Camino just before you go into Santiago de Compostela, and now that lake is putrid, which is very acidic, like it would burn your skin to go in it. And they've created pools literally over it because it's such a symbolic place of purification, because the pilgrims would come from, like, some of them had been pilgrimaging, that's not the same word. They'd been on pilgrimage for like 2, 3, 4 months. So they were diseased, they had body odor, and they would go in this lake to purify before they went to the church. Because still to this day, people do that hike to have forgiveness. And I didn't do it for religious reasons. I did it for spiritual. But point being, like, it was like I was going to that lake and stirring up all the stuff that you
felt like you were at, like, rock bottom. Was that like one of those moments in life where you're like, I need to make a drastic change?
I think I always find, like, again, when I know that I need to shift something, and sometimes I mentally can't do it, I do it physically. So before the documentary came out, I did Peru for 5 days, and whenever Salkente passed, because if you go on a physical journey, it mimics, right, internal, and you have expansion. So that wasn't a rock bottom. That was actually before I was about to make a very bad mistake that we'll talk about. But I did that.
And maybe the next book?
Yeah, maybe in the next book. Yeah. But I learned some important lessons though. So yeah.
Wow. Like, it sounds like you have such a fascinating life. And
I don't know.
I'm really amazed, because I just really like what you do. And I love this idea of, like, people seeking help, someone being there like a teammate with them, because so often we feel very alone. And
sure.
And I know specifically as realtors and solopreneurs, you get up every day, you're alone, you're grinding it out work. People don't understand it. Like just recently I was at a friend's birthday party, right? Big 40th birthday party. And it was midnight, which is very late for me. I went to bed very early, but midnight, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to go. And there, the pressure started of like, why are you leaving? And I was saying like, well, I got to work tomorrow. And I find that unfortunately people who are kind of running their own business and, either, I guess the majority of them maybe work for other companies and their employees, there's this lack of understanding that like it all falls on me. Like I have to pay my employees. They get paid regardless if we bring in revenue dollars. I'd like them to get paid for sure and keep them all hired as long as possible. You lead a big team. Any leadership advice, mindset advice around leading people that you could share, maybe particularly with someone like myself, because, it can be overwhelming and you can really sink your teeth into it, maybe too much sometimes. And I was telling you, offline, like last year I took one vacation. At some point you're like near to that point of exhaustion, and you have your friends who care about you, who are looking at you from the outside in, and they worry. So what's kind of your advice around being a leader and owning your own company?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like without systems and processes, and I'm saying this because it sounds like, of course you need that, but and maybe not yours, but there's a lot of businesses that don't have that piece. So they just grew so quickly that they thought, oh, we don't know what they're doing, but they go out and do something. Like documented systems and processes give us freedom. They keep us on track for sure. But I think the main thing is like, I hope my company's never big enough. And I'm not saying this in an insulting way. I'll preface it, but I hope my company's never big enough to have a corporate mentality or an employee mentality, because it's what downs companies. Because we have an entrepreneurial model, which means, hey, if you're in marketing, that's your department. That's like your company. The buck stops at you. If we win at marketing, we all win, but you get full like kudos for that. And if we don't, that's on you. Like you're not going to come report to me how to do this. I'm going to give you my strategy and my vision, and I'm going to guide you if you don't know how to get there, but we're going to document it and have like huge cookie crumbles for you. And that's made all the difference.
And if you compensate them accordingly, like salary, or do you have them tied to the success of the company?
Some, yeah, like some of like our director of operations intentionally gets commission on almost everything. So as we grow, like she's my right and left arm. Like she runs the operations, right? So she's huge. So as we grow and her role shifts, like she'll make money because everybody will report to her. Because I'm a very high, we have to know who we are as leaders. So for me, I communicate very quickly. I operate quickly, I can synthesize things, and I need a buffer between the people who, thank goodness, operate slower than I do, are more detail-oriented, are doing different work than me. I need them, I respect them, I need to work with them, but them and I, it's too far of a change, so I have buffers, right? So my director of operations is the buffer between me.
Because they can kind of relate more to that group of people and like bring you the information the way you would like it.
Exactly. I imagine, yeah, exactly, and get to where they want to go. So I find, in the calm leadership space, it's very detrimental to spend our energy on the bottom 20% of our performers, because they're only paying attention to the middle 60%. The top 20% are self-starters. They're the top 5%, not even top 20, I shouldn't say that, are self-starters. They have high willpower. You give them systems, they're going to fly. But often leaders are so focused on that bottom 20% that they don't realize you're spending all your time on people as you trek to the summit who aren't walking. And it's really important. I mean, many people have said it, but we think we can influence anybody, right? Like, yeah, it's so determined. It's not true. People are in ego. It's not true. Yeah. People are in ego mindset, do not trust their mentors. They don't. So you tell them to do all this rudimentary stuff. They're not going to do it because they haven't shifted into a different mindset yet. So it's so important as leaders to be like, if I can't have a team of people who are out of that ego mindset, I've got to really pay attention, because I can't throw you on my back. That's the overbearing leader. I can't just leave you there and expect you to do something. You're already not doing something. So I need to spend my energy on the people who are walking the walk.
And then so you kind of like leave the other people, like you're doing what you're doing, but I'm just not going to focus my time and effort on it.
Yeah, like the opposite of high performance is not laziness or apathy. And people say all the time, I ask it constantly, what's the opposite of high performance? Well, people being lazy. It's not. It's toxicity and enablement. That's what takes out high performance cultures again and again. You've got people saying one thing and doing the other, cutting corners, having ethical issues, and then you've got the people who are enabling it because they're not taking responsibility for what they need to do. So they just play off each other. And as leaders, sometimes like, well, but they mean the best. Well, no, they don't. When people are saying something and not doing it, they either say, I need help. I don't know why I'm saying I'm going to do this stuff and I'm not, and I'm stuck. I need help. But the people keep lying and keep saying one thing and doing another. They cost you your performance. They may not cost you all of it, but they're costing you some of it.
Interesting. Okay. When you hire, do you put people through like, do these personality tests? So because I'm looking for a specific type of person, or someone that can either work with me or work with this group of people. Do you go through those motions?
Yeah, and we're tempted to make the mistake of just like, oh, but it's a good fit. It's like, no, what does the business need, right? As leaders, another thing is like, if we are guardians of the business, like people are relying on us for their livelihood, right? So if we're constantly making decisions based on where the business is going to be in 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, it makes people management a lot easier. So when we're hiring or recruiting, it's like, okay, we're hiring because the business needs this. Who's likely the right archetype for that? How would they be motivated? What would their personality be? What type of things would they love to do? Like we want them to love what they do, right? So we have a multi-step hiring process for a realtor hiring an admin. We go through that and we help them train them, all that stuff. Or for us, like bringing somebody in, exact same process. Yeah.
For real estate agents, I'm going all over the place because every time you're speaking, my mind's like, because we're going through a lot of these growing pains. And we've seen a lot of things like we're a team, but we're a team within a team, and we're growing. And then we're kind of at the same time shrinking in certain ways to focus our efforts on other things. Real estate agents, a lot of them obviously work by themselves. They want growth. They feel they don't have enough time. Do you think their first hire should be an assistant, or should they go down like the buyer agent?
99% of the time, their first hire should be an unlicensed assistant. And it's going to push them. And the reason it's hard is that it pushes them to document their business. And a lot of agents don't want to do that because they're in the fast lane. That's where they make money. So it feels excruciating. So I think a lot of the premise is like, well, you can start to make money back 6 months later after you hired an assistant. That's not true. If you have a system, and like with us, we help hire, then we help train them, and we're setting up their foundation to expand later. So they're not creating this, like we have it. And within 3 months, and I'm going over too, but within 3 months, you can start to get you can start to get a major return on your investment hiring an unlicensed assistant. But the problem is a lot of people, they bring in the unlicensed assistant, even if they are efficient now, they now get that time back. And usually they're burnt out. They've had pinch months trying to get them up and going. So like, I'm just going to chill. And it's like, no, up front. Are you going to take the time the admin's taking off your plate and use it for business? Half and half, only use it for your life. And we monitor that to make sure that it's actually like a successful, profitable hire.
It's so funny because in my company, I'm not necessarily the face of the business. I'm certainly not the loudest person in the room, although I do like the attention, hence the show. But, I work with someone who you know very well, and he gets a lot of the spotlight. He is a fast lane kind of person. Yeah. He can juggle so many balls in a day. Sure. I'm overwhelmed by like an eighth of the things that he does in a day. Like he's just so busy, and it's on to the next thing, where I'm much more a systems person. And he's actually always said, he's like, you're our systems queen. Like it's important. We need those things. But I always kind of somehow felt like it was not the most important job, the systems part. But as I'm growing and learning, starting to realize how impactful it really can be. You talked a lot about systems in any business, but in real estate agents as well, they don't want to document. Is that where you start with most systems for you? That's what I do, is like I kind of write down everything on a paper that I'm doing in a day, and then that allows me to kind of divvy it up. But how do you go about creating your own systems?
That's a good, well, it's a mix. Like we have some, like what you just talked about, we call it the genius model, where we have people look at everything they do in a day personally and professionally, and they go over it for, a 2-month span, and we help them categorize it. Because in real estate, we have a lot of broken leverage where we bring people in, but we're still doing it with them. That's not leverage. It is a little bit, but not if you're fully doing it. But we document the full process and the steps and how you win. That's really important. If you're going to do this, what's the outcome to know that you're on track? So I'm a big believer in the bullseye mentality. Don't train somebody to do anything unless they know how to win and what it looks like if they're not winning and what to do about it, right? That bottom line organization is really, really important. So if we brought on a realtor, like a big part of my company, the intellectual property is systems, right? We have like more than what most clients will use just because sometimes they have some or they don't want to do all of it. But it's integrating it in their business. Like where do we need to customize? And well, people say, just give us the plans for the CRM. For example, I'm like, I can give you the plans, but what's your goal? The goal is the agents are using them, the admins using them. Like, we're like a well-oiled machine. Okay, if I just give you the plans, 100% certainty, you're never going to get where you want to go. Here's like, we need to learn them. We need to customize them. We need your admin using them, and then orchestrate the agents only when needed, right? And then have trigger points all the way through. So we want to guide them to actually get where it works and they're using it. But we have this mentality. I don't know if it's only in real estate. I think in mortgage too, and insurance. And I work with other entrepreneurs of, we still have this broken like model of just give me the information. But like anybody in real estate,
Realtors are notorious for that, for sure. Yes.
yeah, but look at the realtors right now who are trying to just give information. Like, there's no currency in that. Like, we're Sherpas. We've got to guide ourselves and we got to guide our clients.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many guys that we give away for free. And oftentimes when we're doing stage talks or whatever, we'll say like, here's a free resource. Yeah. The problem is, and unfortunately what we know is that the majority of people aren't going to do anything with them. Right. And I think it's because people don't want to like that. The amount of time that you just said would take for someone to get a system, reflect on themselves, their goals. I mean, that could be hours upon hours at times, I imagine, right? To do this correctly and to how to communicate with your staff correctly. But my guess is the work that you put in up front is going to save you a lot in the long end.
Yeah. Well, it's where do you really want to go? Like, people all the time like, I want to have a team that sells 500 homes or 1,000 homes or 100, whatever, right? Or I just want to double my I want to double my business. Well, we hear that all the time. But the percentage of people are, again, that's the summit. I want XYZ, right? But the people who are actually willing to walk that busy work, like, that's a really small percentage of people. So sometimes we're like, well, I don't understand, like, how teams coach with you for 10 years. We're still walking. Like, they have a new summit. Like, we built an ecosystem and we want to maintain it and improve when it falls. And sometimes people think, well, I just build it and I pull out. But the ecosystem is what allows you to continue to be successful. So it's always the question, like, if I'm going to write a book, I get help. Like, I have somebody guiding me. I have accountability and I pay because I need to make it important in my life. So,
like, do you think that's where people go wrong? Like, they're not willing to leave some money on the table for some other people, perhaps?
Well, they're not willing to invest in where they want to go. And the investment is part of the currency. You got to put some skin in the game, right? Like, when I say I've spent hundreds of thousands in personal development certifications, I have. And I hope I continue to invest and evolve. It's worth it. Like, some people say, well, that's crazy. It's like, but my business makes X. Is it crazy? I mean, you're investing next to nothing and your business makes this and you want to grow and you're not growing. So where are you willing to invest? Like, is it your time, your energy, your money, your attention? Which one?
Wow. Before we got here today, you were talking about your oldest child is leaving for university. I hope
My youngest.
Your youngest. So it's like, it's go time now.
It's go time. Yeah, the roots are like,
what's next for Kathleen? I feel like now you'll probably have some more time on your hands, and you're obviously quite successful at using the time that you currently have to make the best of it. So where do you see this all going for you?
Well, I mean, I'm going to continue to do new adventures. I'm going to hike Mont Blanc. I don't know if it'll be this August because my daughter goes to university. So depending on her timeline, I want to be here because I always have on seasons and off seasons. So I don't work in August. I go on an adventure, and soon it'll be July and August. So I'm not there. The company runs, I'm not there, which is cool. So next, I mean, my intuition, the affirmation that keeps coming up is the world will become very small, and it's continuing. I always said I'll travel the world and speak. Like, I want to move people. I've done a lot of shifting in my life, and it's sad for me to see people stuck. And honestly, when I help shift people and I give them that energy, it makes anything hard. And I didn't go through as hard as other people. That's not the point. But it makes anything hard that I went through worthwhile. And honestly, I don't think I could cope with some of the things if I couldn't turn it into something good. So for me, it's like this alchemy of like anything hard that happens, if you can make it 1,000 or 1,000,000 times more positive and light, like you heal and you heal other people. And that's really important for me. So that's where my full focus is going, like international stages.
You on stages, I was saying earlier, are quite captivating. Did you always kind of have that charisma on stage, so to speak? Was it natural for you to kind of have the spotlight on you? Did you have fears?
At first it was hard, and then it started to become this artistic expression. Like, I'd tell stories of like Narcissus and the lake and merge it, and people like, I thought I was coming to a team building event. Like, I didn't know I was going to have this whole experience because I'm trying to ship them, but I didn't know. Like, I was trying to get in how they think. and I could feel it energetically. And there's something beautiful about that, right? So now I don't know, I'm hooked with it. It's like my drug of choice if you were to have one, right? But when I was younger, my grandma was always like, Kate, I'd pick you up in Peterborough and all the way to Campbellford. You wouldn't stop talking, right? So now I'm like,
that's an interesting point. Do you think it's important for us to go back to the things that we liked as kids, just in general in life? Because, you know, we didn't have all the voices in our heads, I feel, as kids to tell us, like, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you don't have time, you don't have money, and all the things, all the awful things that we tell ourselves through experience and, unfortunately, you know, from parenting or from friends and situations like that. But do you go back to a lot of people's childhoods? Like, what did you like as a kid? And what were you like as a kid? Is that what important to tell?
Go through? Like, I think, you know, like anybody who's gone through major healing work, like the childhood stuff, it's important. Like a lot of us as adults are still driven by things we didn't achieve or needs that were unmet as a child. And you can say, hey, I don't want to get into that, but do you want to be free of it? Do you want it to direct your whole life? Like, I don't. I mean, I think even as a kid, I was kind of like, I didn't really believe in normal or boxes or labels, and I still don't. Like, I just want to help people feel good with how they are. Like, I hear people on spectrum or neurodivergent and neurotypical and, you know, all these things. It's like, at the end of the day, there's one big spectrum and we're all on it. And we all have, you know, beautiful gifts and we all have shadow sides. Like, we just do.
So it doesn't have to be something traumatic too, right? Like a lot of times we'll think, you know, people will say, well, I had a great childhood. I mean, what could I even complain about? And it's not about complaining about it. It's more so tapping into some of the things that shaped you, I think, as a child for who you are today. And unfortunately, like you said, you carry those things. And I help so many people try to get over the fear of being on camera. And that's why I was going down the stage talk with you, because it's such a big fear. Like, people would rather die statistically than they would publicly speak, right? And people do not have enough confidence or the willingness to try to get over it. Sure. And I say oftentimes, like, I think when we think of ourselves as kids, a lot of people say, well, I didn't have that as a child, or I actually loved being the center of attention as a kid. And so something shifted along the way.
But I think it's like we're built perfectly, right? Like, I'm strategic. I'm built, you know, there's no normal, but some people would say I'm further from it if there was some. But I say both. But we're built perfectly. Like, if you're called to speak and then you're scared, speak. You were called to speak. But if you're not, don't. Right? Like, I'm more terrified of small talk in a party than I am to be on stage with 20,000 people. It's just perspective.
Now, why do you think so many people then want to learn that skill? Like, because I work with people in social media and doing podcasts and things like that, people will come to me and say, I wish I was like you, or I wish I was like your business partner. I would love to have my own show. But then when we start going through the motions, I'm not sure that really is within them, because I think they are someone else than they're claiming to be, but I guess they just haven't tapped into it, like who they really are as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, we're in a time of media and content is so important in our industry. And I think a lot of people who don't necessarily align with that side of things feel pushed to do it. I think sometimes people feel they have to be a big social media presence to be successful as a realtor. And we know that's not technically true. It's quicker. I think it's a quicker avenue to build your brand and be successful. Does everybody do it, or does everybody need to do it? Is it the only way? No, it's an important way, right? There's some big producers who barely do any social media, right? So I think we have this need to, you know, show up in a certain way. But again, it's just figuring out what are your gifts? Like, what are your unique gifts, and how can you use those to do business? And this is why teams are also huge, right? Because I'm not going to be good at some parts of the business. It's a business that requires like 20 different archetypes from us. So I'll work with a business that has strengths in my area of weakness. And that to me is why teams have such an edge in real estate, whether you're pro team or not. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just a fact.
Well, I guess for me, I've always, since 9 years ago, I started on a team. I just felt like that was going to be the best way for me to learn. B, I felt other people would hold me accountable.
Sure.
I think that's super important for a lot of people in business. And I think as we wrap up here today, that's what's so important as having a coach, someone like you in someone's corner. If you don't have that accountability person in your life, or that team of people that you're working with to kind of help you in the avenues where you're maybe lacking or you're less skillful, like, you need people like you. So what is the best way for people to get a hold of you, your business, if they're interested? Sure. Where should they go?
Yeah, I mean, I think for everybody to ask yourself, like, who's guiding you? Because that's your cap. And if you want to have global results or national results, you want to go to global and national experts. And that's important in the real estate industry, right? Because our local is like your 80% or your 99% are not top 1% nationally. But for us, you can go to Kathleen Black on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We have hundreds of articles and videos just free, like to help you guys on blogs. On our LinkedIn, they're all listed. And our website is just changing. So I'm hoping it's going to be launched when this airs, and it's kathleenblack.com.
And you have all that new, beautiful logos and everything.
Insight is it in brand.
It's going to be incredible. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like we could have a follow-up on a follow-up where we could go down into specific, deeper topics. I just wanted to give all of our viewers and listeners today just, a sneak peek into what it is that you do and how you can help, because I think at the end of the day, we could all use a little help sometimes. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Thanks again so much for being here, and I'll see you guys next time.